Hi and welcome back to my channel. This is the third video in my If Only series where I discuss underrated, popular, or forgotten groups and artists' careers, the ups and downs of what went wrong in their careers, why they are not as popular as they could be, why their popularity dropped, and where these issues stem from, whether the issue is their company, their fans, their music, or themselves as a group or idols. In this video in particular, I will be discussing the K-pop group Treasure, how they were formed, and the factors that have affected their popularity and success. Treasure was formed through the reality TV show YG Treasure Box, which ran from 2018 to 2019. The show featured 29 trainees who were gradually eliminated until the final members were chosen. The group was originally intended to be called Treasure 13, but one of the members, Ha Yun Bin, decided to leave to pursue a solo career, so the group instead took on the name Treasure, and were reintroduced January 2020, but they officially debuted August 7, 2020, with the final members being Bang Yedam, Kim Jung-kyu, Park Jung-woo, Yoon Jae-hyuk, Park Ji-hoon, Choi Hyun-suk, Yoshi, So Jang-hwan, Kim Do-young, Haruto, Asahi, and Mashiho. If you were a K-pop fan around 2018 to 2020, you probably remember the amount of scandals that were coming out about YG's new boy group that had not even debuted yet. Somewhat during the show and around the time it was wrapping up and ending, the group was already running into their first scandal, but this one didn't necessarily have to do with the group itself, but instead the issues that came with the survival show that they were in. The YG Treasure Box scandal primarily refers to the concerns about the lack of detailed information surrounding the survival show's selection process, with fans questioning the fairness of how YG Entertainment chose the final members of the boy group. This issue mostly arose with the elimination of certain trainees who had gained significant popularity during the show, leading to accusations of favoritism and manipulation by the company. Several trainees who were considered strong contenders by the audience were eliminated unexpectedly during the later stages of the show, which raised concerns about what was actually needed of the trainees to be selected. It also didn't help that the show's production team did not provide detailed explanation for the elimination decisions, which furthered the issue of speculation of bias and manipulation. Though many fans have later on stated that they think that this decision ended up helping the group, Treasure's debut still did get delayed, and this can cause issues for a new group. It mostly affects the anticipation and hype a group has before a debut. Leaving time might have some fans growing more fonder and more excited for the group, while it can also cause fans and the general public to move on to other groups who are debuting or releasing new music, which can cause the group to kind of fade into the background until they finally announce they're about to debut. But at that point, the anticipation and the hype has already died down. We just saw this happen with Baby Monster, who is ironically also from YG Entertainment. But to be fair, groups that come from bigger companies have more room to be able to do stuff like this because people will still be tuning into their debut regardless, just because their company and groups before them are well known. Even without the delay in their debut, I think that Treasure would have still had issues anyway, just because there was already animosity building up from the previous scandal. And though the scandal was not even the boys' fault, when it comes to voting in survival shows, especially with K-pop, having your favorite trainee not be picked and eliminated and other trainees be picked over them, and add the fact that there is potential rigging within the elimination and selection process, that in itself already causes an issue with the audience who would end up being fans of the group. We saw the same thing happen with ENHYPEN, who are also on a survival show and debuted in the same year as Treasure. Some of the members weren't picks of a lot of the fans who were voting live on the show, so whenever some of these members ended up being in the final lineup, there are a lot of fans who ended up spreading hate towards some of the members. And this was before and after they debuted. And because of this, a lot of the members were nitpicked for little tiny habits or behaviors that some of the fans didn't appreciate. In retrospect, some of these issues were things that a lot of us wouldn't even think to be mad mad about, but because some of these members were already being hated on, was enough for a hate train to start and for them to have issues with literally anything that they did. And in some similarities, the same thing happened to Treasure. Because of their first scandal, their image in the Korean public kind of soured, and even though the scandal wasn't even their fault, it still was enough to garner negative attention to their name. That's also mostly because a lot of fans and people in general find it easier to hold a grudge towards the members instead of the company. I think it's because people find it easier to pick the target that's right in front of us other than the people who are behind the scenes that we don't really get to see. But there are still some other scandals that Treasure has been in during their pre-debut and after debuting. These are scandals that the members themselves have been in individually. Months after their survival show had ended, Blackpink released their song, Kill This Love. One of the members, Haruto, posted a picture on his private story with the caption, "It's my birthday and you're watching Blackpink Sunbaenim." In the picture, you can see the Treasure members in the background as Haruto's middle finger was in front of the camera. There were some fans who took it as a joke, but there were also a good amount of fans who found it to be disrespectful towards Blackpink. But the main issue with this scandal is that Treasure is a group that comes from YG Entertainment that, as we know, is the exact same company Blackpink has been under. Usually, whenever a new group is announced, fans who are already into the artist under the same company will definitely be waiting for the debut and also most likely become a fan of that group. So making a fandom who will most likely become your fandom upset is never a good idea. Another scandal that also involved Haruto were the rumors that he was FaceTiming pretty Sasang fans and contacting them through DM. This was supposedly done on Instagram, where he would send them selfies to prove his identity while using a private account. He would allegedly ask for gifts from the fans and show off gifts he received from other fans. The Sasang also leaked pictures that were allegedly from his private account to show proof. This hasn't been proven to be true or false. Many people moved on from it, mostly because it was coming from a Sasang, and it's just in general hard to trust information that comes from a Sasang. At this time, another member of Treasure, Hyun-suk, was also finding himself in a scandal because he was watching a Little Pump lyric video with a 14-year-old present, and the reason why this was controversial was because the lyrics of the song were believed to be very inappropriate. And because of these three scandals I just discussed, there was actually a petition to get both Hyun-suk and Haruto removed from the group, which we all know did not work because they do end up in the final lineup and they are still in the group to this day. But with that said, after their debut, these two members in particular do end up being in more scandals. Haruto once again found himself in another scandal when he allegedly said a homophobic remark in an 8-second clip where he stated, "A man with a man is weird," which upset a lot of fans who were a part of the LGBTQ community as well as allies. But there were also a lot of fans who came to his defense, saying that the 8-second clip was taken out of context, and he was actually talking about that he did not like being shipped with the members, and that his phrasing was just wrong. Either way, the damage had already been done. This 8-second clip was circling around every social media platform. And while I can understand both sides, even hearing his statement with context is still something that would rub people the wrong way. And seeing how his members reacted in that video, they also obviously knew what he was saying was wrong or just going to get him in trouble.
같은 게 로맨스 코미디 아니에요? 그러니까 그거를 남자란 남자로 해서 이상하게 된 거지.
And going back to Hyun-suk and his scandals, he was accused of cultural appropriation in 2020 when he wore locks in their song's music video and stage performances. And the thing is with cultural appropriation, I think it is fair for a lot of fans to assume that some idols who have ever only known their own culture might not be well educated on other cultures outside of their own. And so some fans do take the time up to explain their culture, and that is something that a fan did with Hyun-suk in a fan call. She did her best to explain why cultural appropriation is harmful and wrong. And to be fair, trying to explain as much as you can who is not fluent in your language, as well as the fact that fan calls are very short, can be very difficult, and you might not have really completely understood everything that she was trying to say. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of idols do realize whenever they are getting a very strong reaction to something that they do, especially whenever that strong reaction is all online. And he definitely fan either didn't understand or did not learn at all, because he did turn around and do the exact same thing in 2023 where he wore braids at the Mama Awards, but this time it was even worse because of how he was acting. There are a lot of people who are fans of Treasure that said that Hyunsuk never acted like that before and had completely changed his behavior to be a black stereotype. And that is why we do our best to explain cultural appropriation, because we get into this area where people start associating hairstyles and certain types of clothing with harmful stereotypes. But I think what really sent fans over the top was the fact that this was his second time doing this, and with the first time there was a fan who tried her best to explain it. And as I stated before, cultural appropriation is more than just basic explaining. Sometimes it takes actual deep conversations with that person also being open-minded for them to understand it. But black culture in general is something that a lot of people love to masquerade as, but never actually take it seriously as a culture, which is nothing new and a whole nother conversation. But this was a lot of international and more so black fans' last straw, because he just looked like he was being blatantly ignorant because he repeated the same mistake he had just made. And apparently in the fan call, he did acknowledge the fact that he knew, and he did say that he understood. So even though the scandals have affected Treasure, I can't forget the fact that losing 2 members has also affected them. Some groups have solo fans that have favoritism towards certain members, and a lot of times if those members leave, so do their fans. Yeon terminated his contract with YG Entertainment alongside Mashiho in November of 2022, leaving the group as well. Yeon stated he wanted to pursue a career as a music producer, which aligns more with his personal musical aspiration than the group's direction. Before terminating his contract, Mashiho was already on hiatus for health reasons, leading him to leave the group to focus on his health, but he also later on returned as a soloist. The announcement that 2 members would be leaving Treasure came only 2 years after the group had debuted, so the group itself was still in its early stages. Yeon also had a hand in some of the production and the writing of lyrics of some of Treasure's songs, with a notable one being Treasure's rival song, Darari. I've seen many fans complain that the music declined after Yeon and Mashiho left, but I also think that it has to do with some of Treasure's producers who worked on their earlier music also leaving around this time. Many fans have also stated that some of the members have more of a hand in their music, which could also be a reason why the music sounds different. As of now, majority of their fans come from Japan and Indonesia. Treasure has still been doing pretty well whenever it comes to awards and notability. And while the group may not be tremendously as popular as other well-known YG groups, I do think that it's fair to say that they have still made a name for themselves and still have a pretty big fan base. And I honestly don't think it's possible for a group that comes from a big company to not be popular in some type of way. Even if it isn't at the status of certain groups from that company, you will still have some type of success and popularity. While I am definitely not a huge fan of Treasure, I will admit that they have some really good earlier releases, and speaking from the perspective of someone who only really knows their title tracks and promoted B-sides, they did have somewhat of a variety of sound. They had their poppy, EDM, light-hearted songs, as well as their more YG, hip-hop type of sound as well, and these two sounds were usually the ones that they would use off and on with their title tracks and promoted B-sides, but I do think that they've definitely had some good releases in my opinion. So do I think that Treasure would have been even more successful if it wasn't for their many scandals? Yes, they had the type of sound that a lot of K-pop fans are drawn to and love. They came out at a time whenever we were having a pretty huge shift and transition in K-pop, and I think that they would have easily fit right into that mix. I think that they already had so much anticipation and so many people were already excited to see a new boy group come from YG Entertainment, especially after the issues that had been happening with Big Bang and iKON. So a lot of fans were probably ready for a new boy group to come from YG. I honestly don't think that the Survival show having the issues that it had would have affected the group either way. Stuff like that is something that fans and the general public can move on from and forgive or forget. Having scandals pre-debut and then also after debuting, with also the delay of their debut, definitely caused more issues and overall really stunted the growth of the group and its music and the growth of the fandom as well. But that is all for this video. Please let me know what you think down below, your thoughts, your opinions, if you disagree with some of the things that I've said, how differently you think Treasure's career could have been if a lot of these scandals never took place, or if you think that Treasure is still quite successful despite everything that has happened with the group. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Please remember to be respectful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone has an amazing day. Bye bye!